So after talking earlier, we got Matt Derrick back. How are you, Matt?
I am well, Ryan. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm trying to keep up with all the updates. And we heard earlier this week, and you were on them, all these updates from a couple players spoke, a lot going on. Frank Clark was up there as well. And he's one of the guys that I haven't actually had a chance to see the presser yet. And I know you were in on it. What was your impression of where Frank is and what it looks like from his perspective?
Yeah, I think Frank Clark was Frank Clark. I mean, he's kind of in a joking mood and seems to be in pretty good spirits. I thought it was notable. I think his exact words were, winning the Super Bowl was cute, but they've got other things to do this year. That's Frank Clark in a nutshell. I mean, that's his kind of personality. But yeah, I mean, he's certainly, at least from an interview standpoint, looked like he's in mid-season form, and certainly feeling better than he did at this point last year. I mean, it was that, really at this point that the pinched nerve was starting to bother him a little bit. If health-wise, he feels 180 degrees from, really where he was last year. He says he doesn't like to make excuses and everything, but he concedes that, training camp, the first half of the season last year weren't good for him. Yeah. And he didn't play up to his expectations. So he's looking to try and start this season healthy. And he thinks that if he can, that he's going to get off to a hot start.
And they could certainly use it. I remember thinking that he looked a little pained under the tent one time last year, late in camp, very much near the end, one of the last days. So the fact that he might be a little bit ahead of the schedule here, I think is great. And honestly, I think that not only helps him, helps Chris Jones. I know he had a couple comments about that. My question is, how much can it help Mike Dana, who I think is a guy that they're really interested in getting going as a sub player? But did he talk about that at all, or did you get an impression about how he's feeling in terms of leading the unit?
Yeah, didn't talk a lot about Dana, but did talk about Taco Carlton, and and I think you get a little bit of a sense there that yeah, I mean, this is a defensive end group that they're trying to build a lot of chemistry there. That it's a group that they've got a good mix of personalities. They like the room. Frank Clark certainly likes the group. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be key. Is Clark is going to have to set the tone. I mean, there are some young guys in that group. And with Taco, you got a guy that's, looking for a fresh start. And it's going to be up to Frank to kind of set the tone for that entire position group.
It seems like that's pretty normal for him. That shouldn't be too much of a stretch. My impression, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but my impression of Taco when he was on Zoom with the team was that he's pretty quiet, a little bit reserved maybe. Maybe Frank helps bring that out. Frank's definitely got all the edge, and Chris Jones has all the jokes. Like, this seems like a pretty well-rounded group.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's a pretty deep group. I mean, when you look at it, and certainly you put Clark and Jones, you have to put into a star category. They absolutely are. But they've got a lot of guys who can do different things, and you've got a lot of flexibility there. And I think they kind of pride themselves on it. You got a lot of guys coming back from last year, and and they saw how well they played in the second half of the season, and they think they can do that out of the gate this year. I mean, we'll see. I mean, and if they can, I mean, obviously, that defensive line group really set the tone for what was the league's best defense essentially from week 11 on. And if they can do that out of the gate in week 1, it's going to do a lot to take the pressure off the offense of having to carry the load.
Yeah. And that's balance, I think, is probably the goal overall. If I'm on the coaching staff, that's what I'm pushing. Anything coming from the staff themselves? I know this is a big transition for the players, but the coaches are having to change things too, being at Arrowhead, working back and forth, keeping distance. Any feedback on how you feel that's going?
Yeah, just a little bit. I think that even with all of the changes and the protocols that they're having to do, Andy Reid's trying at the same time to keep things as normal as possible. I mean, that's really what they're doing. And that's why, even in some of the activities that they're doing, I mean, it's once again, it's straight from, previous year's playbook. I mean, right now, kind of talking about this being a phase 1 or in phase 2 of, the off-season program. They're doing the same things that they would normally do in April and early May in a regular season. It's all compressed. But Andy Reid loves to keep his team comfortable and on routine. And that's something you can't always do in the NFL, especially when you're a team like the Chiefs and you play a lot of primetime games and you get some, goofy schedules. But he's a creature of comfort. I mean, he likes for things to be consistently the same. So he's trying to get them into that pattern where, everything feels comfortable and everything's routine. They're certainly still feeling their way on a few things. And, I think the position group meetings and the team meetings are one of those that they're kind of still feeling their way through. But right now, I mean, you're getting nothing but a lot of sense of confidence from this group that they feel like that things are going well.
Well, and they need that confidence. There are a couple of guys that have to make some transitions. I know one spoke today, and I think without saying it outright, but I think we understand that the team understands there's going to be a suspension for Bashaud Breeland. And Charvarius Ward, without giving it away, feels like he needs to step up, right?
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, the team after Charvarius said that Breeland was going to be out for the first 4 weeks. The team came in and said, well, we don't know anything officially, so yeah. But hey, yeah, Charvarius Ward at least thinks that Bashaud Breeland is going to be suspended for the first 4 weeks. But I'll tell you what, I mean, Ward, from the moment he arrived in Kansas City, I talked to him, I think, a couple of days later, and first things out of his mouth was, I want to be one of the best corners in the league. I mean, he's had that confidence from day one. And, if you're going to be a shutdown corner in this league, you have to have that kind of confidence. And you've also got to have the mentality that, if you make a mistake, that you set it aside and you don't dwell on it and then make another mistake. And his mental makeup has, I think, always been one of his best qualities. The physical aspect and the game part of it, tell you what, he's always been a little bit behind. He was a little bit of a late bloomer. He was really undersized. He went to community college and kind of got a late growth spurt. And the thing that I always heard about him is that, there was a belief that once he kind of, grew up physically into his body, that that he had the athletic tools to be a really, really good player. It was just a matter of maturing. And I think that we've seen that, at least over last season. And he feels like, going from year 2 to year 3, that he can be one of those guys that takes another big leap. And I know from talking to some of his teammates, like, Tyrann Mathieu, that they have the same belief in him too.
Well, that's great to hear. I thought he did a very good job taking a big step forward last season. Obviously, there's a ways to go, but he's going to get the opportunity because without Breeland on the field, they're going to go after him. Every opponent, including the Ravens, so long as week 3 comes off on time, they're going to go after him quite a bit. I'm glad to hear that he's confident. And the change for the secondary with Tyrann Mathieu kind of leading the way back there, it has been stark over the last 2 seasons. But for one question I have, didn't get an update myself on Juan Thornhill. Do you have any new information or who might be getting reps in his stead?
No, haven't heard yet. And at this point they are kind of going through walkthrough. So I don't think it's a big deal that, Thornhill is not out there right now. The expectation with him was that, they were going to bring him along slowly, that even if they thought that maybe he was ready to go at the beginning of camp, they would still put him on the PUP list, just to bring him along slowly and kind of cover them in case there's any, setbacks. But at this point, there hasn't been any of that. The team feels like he is absolutely right on schedule. My expectation, at least from what I've been told, is that I think you can expect him to get back on the field here in short order. If it's not before they start practicing on the 14th, I think I'll probably be pretty quickly thereafter.
I think that's perfect. Let him warm up into it. It's been quite a while, and a late injury like that always takes a little bit extra. That schedule of the 14th. Coming down here at this point. I like what you said earlier, compressing the first 2 phases into a week and then third phase a week, and then you're ready to kind of ramp it up. Does that shortened timeline give you any pause as to what we can expect to see week 1?
Absolutely it does. And, and from talking to people around the league, I mean, I think you get the same thing, which is that, with the absence of so many practices, you're going to basically get a training camp in. Which a training camp is typically about 15 practices. But, that's not all the preseason, because then you have 2 more weeks that you go back to your facility and you've got 2 more preseason games. You've already played 2. You've had an entire offseason program. So when you're talking about, going into week 1 and really having maybe about 15 practices before you go into that week, so maybe you're talking about in the ballpark of 18 to 20 practices. That's nothing. I mean, it really is. So I think there's a lot of fear around the league that, early in the season, you're going to see some sloppy football. And that's what the Chiefs have to take advantage of, because they are a team that is absolutely built to not be sloppy in week one. And they've got some tough teams that are going to face out of the box that, may fit that same profile. The Ravens certainly fit that profile to me. They're going to see in week 3. But I think the Chiefs are absolutely built to take advantage of being a well-prepared football team early, because I think you are. I think you're going to see a lot of sloppy play the first 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's going to be. I don't know. It's going to be viewable. I'll tell you that, but I don't know if it's going to be down to the XFL level.
Yes.
Yeah. Knock on wood. And speaking of XFL level, reaction to what got done at auction or whatever with The Rock taking over the XFL. Is this something that we're going to see more and more? Do you think that can come back?
We'll see. I mean, the thing is that anytime Vince McMahon gets involved, it's a clown show. So, and now, hey, after yesterday, the positive news that, hey, Rock was buying the XFL, it's going to come back. It's going to be great. And now today, on Tuesday, we're hearing there's some shenanigans involved. So, maybe there's some insider work going on here. I'd rather have the AAF, because that was a, more serious league. I still think, the NFL should just, develop its own developmental league. I think it would be in their best interest down the road. I don't think there's any interest in the NFL of actually doing that, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think the AAF would have been the better league to try and bring it back, because the XFL, yeah. I mean, anytime Vince McMahon gets involved with football, I have concerns.
Well, twice bitten at this point, so that makes sense.
And we'll probably be third bitten by the time we get
right
this time next year.
I like some of the rule changes. I thought that was interesting, but clearly that's a business that can't be in the same spot as it was last year. I'm really interested to see how the rest of this goes. The NFL's certainly doing all they can. We'll be interested to see what happens with the college season, and then maybe we'll see if there's going to be a spring football or not. I appreciate all of your insight and you walking us through what we can all see and be there for. So thanks for your time.
Absolutely, Ryan.
And folks, we'll be back with you next time. Check it out. Thanks, Matt. We'll talk to you later.